Hey everyone, and welcome to the first ever episode of Conversations in Aurora with Neighbor. My name's Sean. I'm going to be one of your hosts today. I'm pleased to welcome some amazing guests from Aurora, and I'm really excited to dive deep behind their backstory and what got them involved here in the community of Aurora. So first, I'd like to welcome Ron Weiss. Ron is president and founder of Sport Aurora. Ron, how's it going?
Going really well. Thanks for having us on.
No worries. Next, we've got Tina Finelli. Tina is a seasoned entrepreneur with over 25 years of launching and growing companies. And most recently, Tina is co-founder of See What She Can Do. Tina, how's it going on this Monday morning?
It's a beautiful Monday morning in Aurora. All the leaves are changing colors, and it's great to be here.
I don't know if I'm happy about the leaves changing colors, but I get where you're coming from. I get that. And last in the studio today, we've got Jesse Carwatt. He's a local musician and music producer. How's it going, Jesse?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
No problem. How's everyone doing on this wonderful Monday morning?
Good.
Couldn't be better.
Couldn't be better. That's good to hear.
Looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too. I'm really excited to dive deep and learn a little bit about you guys and how you find yourselves here in Aurora and what you're up to behind the scenes. So, Ron, I'd like to go to you first. You've been a resident here in Aurora for a long time, from what I understand. What made you come here to Aurora and kind of start Sport Aurora and everything in the sport community?
Well, it was somewhat of an accident. I was working in Seneca. Came up here. Came from a farm community, and graduated from university, and I got my master's degree. And Seneca offered me a job, so I moved up here. And it just so happened that a place was available for me back in, 1983 or 84. And so I first moved here and then met my wife here. And then we had children. And as what happens with most people in sports, your children help drive you into those sports because you want them involved. And people then said, well, would you like to coach? Would you like to be involved in sports? So I said, sure, I'll do what I can do. I like to volunteer. Volunteering is very important to me in a variety of ways. So that's what got me started on the journey. And it's, 30 years of it, I guess, right now. And I don't regret a minute of it.
That's awesome. Yeah, and from what I remember, your wife only lived couple streets over, right? It was a pretty short move for her.
Oh yes, we just carted it around the corner. We live on Larmont Street in the old part of town, and she lived on Wellington Street, so it was really quite funny. We've been talking about the moves. A lot of people move from place to place, so we've moved once and she's moved once, so she's a hometown girl.
That's a good life. It's nice when you don't have to move too much. Tina, I'd like to throw it to you. So you've been in Aurora for a little while now, from what I understand, but you've lived in some pretty awesome countries. What was your background and how'd you end up here in Aurora?
That's for Tina?
Yes, for Tina.
It's for me. Sorry. I thought you were talking to Jess. Yeah.
No.
You know what? I have lived in some great places, and we've done a bit of traveling. Just prior to coming to Aurora, I had lived in Japan with my husband and my little babies.
Wow.
And that was an incredible experience.
No kidding.
We had moved when my kids were quite small. I took some time off of work and really rediscovered who I was. I kind of thought I knew it all back then. And it's funny, as you get older, you realize how much,
you don't.
how little you really know. Yeah. Exactly. But back then I thought I knew it all. And when I moved to this brand new country, where the language was completely different, I mean, everything was completely opposite, from the way you zipper up your clothes and where your labels are to the light switches and the toilets, which are a real treat. I mean, those, I don't know. Have you guys ever?
What's so great about a Japan toilet? Tell us.
The Japanese toilets you can actually get them on Amazon now. They're pretty amazing. Like they warm the seats for you. There's water that kind of sprays out at the right time, and it makes sound, like you can make sound effects so that you don't hear what's going on in the washroom. Anyways, it's a fun.
So they rank at the
place to be.
They rank at the top, I guess.
What's that?
I said they rank at the top for toilets, I'm guessing.
They rank at the top. Yeah, they're the top toilet makers. But anyways, it's a beautiful country. And when we got back from Japan, we were just trying to find the right community to move into. I had grown up in Oakville, and I loved the small town nature of that place. and the schools and stuff. So we were looking for a similar community. And when we kind of toured around the Aurora area, we loved the schools. We loved that you could walk to town. We loved just the small town feel of it.
Yeah.
And this is where we came. So we've been here for about 15 years and love it.
And from what I understand, your whole family was into hockey. You weren't into hockey, and they kind of peer pressured you to start that hockey journey, and that's kind of where you found your roots here in the sport community.
Yeah, it's interesting as you move around, there are different things that kind of help root you. And for me, it was definitely sport. It's always been sport. But, my nature, I kind of have this philosophy. I'd like to try something that scares me once every couple of years. And those things.
Oh,
Let's rewind.
I think we lost Tina there for a sec.
We're big into it. My husband was playing and my daughter came up to me on the bench one day and said, "You're the only one that doesn't play." And I'm like, maybe I should give it a go. So I kind of jumped into Never Too Late Hockey, which was a great locally run program for moms, basically, or women who have never played the sport. And I couldn't skate. I couldn't stop. That's what all that padding's for. And I found my peeps. It's a great group of ladies and a great way to get integrated into the community.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's really awesome. Hockey is one thing I've never played. And to be honest, I don't know if I'll ever play it. Just not for me. Not for me.
It's never too late. I tell you, put on that equipment and you fall, it's okay.
Yeah.
You don't hurt yourself. You're still young enough. I think I was, maybe 39 or something. Like I literally couldn't stop myself up against the boards. So you're not too old. You're a young guy still.
Use the boards as your brakes. Slam right into them.
You use the board or other people. You can use other people too.
Okay, that works.
I can skate now and I can play, so it's awesome.
Nice. And then, last in the studio, we've got Jesse Carwat today. Jesse, I know you're obviously a local musician. You've done some pretty awesome things, played with some cool bands around the world.
Fortunately.
Tell us about your background. What was the first musician you picked up and when was that?
First musician. Wow. Well, we'll backtrack to kind of when I got interested in music. My parents noticed at a young age that I was asking for musical instruments when I was 4. Saxophone, something that normally a 6-year-old or 4-year-old doesn't ask for.
The most random instrument you could have picked. Out of all of them,
And like I was talking to you before, Aurora in this community has a funnel of musicians that come up from Toronto and settle here and thankfully showcase all their talent and love to inspire a lot of the youth around here. So I had a great teacher, got me into it and got me stoked and introduced me to Stevie Wonder, who was my first musical love, and found that and got into playing keys and singing. And
what's that song? Superstition?
That's the song.
Yeah,
that's the song. Song. I was playing piano, and as you do when you play piano, you learn a little Royal Conservatory and a couple little things that help you get into the door of that. And when I heard Stevie Wonder and I heard that clavinet, the sound he plays on Superstition, just blew my mind. I thought, wow, you can do this with piano. Piano is a cool instrument. So I went full into it.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you played with some pretty cool bands. What bands are those?
So I got a chance actually about 6 years ago. I got to play with I Mother Earth, and they took me on a tour, which took me out to basically east to west coast. I got to tour with Finger 11 and Our Lady Peace a little bit.
Awesome.
And play with a blues band that actually took me to Europe, and I toured a little bit of Switzerland and Germany.
That's pretty cool. So seeing all those different musical communities and across Canada and in Europe, what's your opinion of the music community here in Aurora, and where do you see it going?
Well, community is the big word. I mean, sometimes you have scenes. That's kind of what people call it when they get into that bigger realm of things. It's a scene because you can't predict it. It's kind of just its own flowing organic thing. But Aurora and these smaller communities have a really family vibe when it comes to showing up. I know some of the shows we've done lately, Giggin' Live, and a couple of these other showcases through Snap for musicians. It's been a lot of familiar faces. It feels like a family showing up every time, right?
Definitely.
So, it's been great.
Nice. So
I was at one of your Giggin' Live shows a couple of weeks ago. I think the charity, I love the charity aspect of it too. So there's, it's interesting. You show up and you don't know what to expect during this COVID time, right? And you come into the parking lot and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Like you forget that vibe of community that happens when you've been kind of
deprived of it. Yeah, for sure.
it's great.
It was awesome. And
yeah,
I
it's
love
great
the whole
to
charitable aspect. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great to have
The
people
one I
coming out
went
and supporting.
Yeah. Are you finding the same kind of numbers? Like I know the one I was at was, I think it was raising money for, well, I know it was raising money for the Canadian Pulmonary Fibrosis Foundation. And I think, didn't Fridays was like Terry Fox, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Are
So
you finding the same kind of numbers and the same kind of feel, or what's?
definitely. Yeah. There's always a love for live music for people who spend a lot of their weekends and their free time enjoying that. So just the fact that we've kind of provided something for people to have an outlet just to come and have a good time. And like you said, forget, about the other things and remember live music and concerts and community vibes. It's great.
It's important now more than ever. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
But speaking of the COVID times we're living in, I know maybe parents out in the community aren't really thinking about registering their kids for sports. And that's a big thing. We need them to remember that keeping kids involved in sports is detrimental to their development growing up. So I wanted to throw it to Ron and Tina to talk about what we can do to keep people involved with sports and maybe what it's going to take for people in the community to help out with that. So Ron, I'll throw it to you first.
Yeah, thanks. It's really a serious issue. We've been spending time with all of our 43 sport organizations in Sport Aurora and having leaders, parents, sponsors, anybody who's a stakeholder in delivery of sport, because sport's taken a real serious hit. The Sport Canada, of course, manages national sport and take care of the high performance aspect and competition, as does the provincial government through their provincial sport organizations. But the ones that really matter and the ones that are at the grassroots here are local sport organizations. The ones where people work on the corner of their desk, a lot of them are primarily volunteer driven with coaches and all the rest of it. So, this COVID thing has really opened everybody's eyes to the various struggles that are occurring everywhere. And sport is one of those ones that I think are falling through the cracks. And I'm worried that we're not going to get them back. So I keep telling parents, if you're interested in putting your child in a sport program or a physical activity program, do it now. Don't wait, because next year that sport program or that activity may not be around, just simply because people can't survive.
Yeah, they can't volunteer the time
and world.
Yeah.
Yeah, expenses are going up. I also appeal to sponsors, because sponsors, the revenue that most of these organizations get, it goes right to the bottom line, and the purpose of it is to try to reduce costs to parents, because we know when costs of sport go up, then people fall off because of financial circumstances, and those are even worse now in our sort of coming out of this post-COVID world. I like to be optimistic, thinking we're getting out of this post-COVID world, but I think people need to get back and get close to their sport organizations and ask them what they're doing and how they can put their kids involved into it. Because I'd hate for sport to be something that's only for the wealthy when we get outside of this thing, because it's so important to the culture of a community.
Yeah, for sure. You want to prepare for.
Ron, I was gonna jump in if you don't mind.
Of course, yeah, go ahead, Tina.
Ron, yeah, I think that's a really great point. And, people may be surprised at what is happening behind the scenes to make sure that things are being done safely and that there's all the right precautions in place. We just shot a podcast with the town of Aurora last week, actually, we used our Snap Studios, and our first 2 podcasts are actually live. So you should check us out, see what you can do in any podcast.
Good plug.
But some of the things Aaron Hamilton was talking about, people may not understand that the sport organizations have spent a ton of time planning since March to get people back to play safely. And a lot of the sports that are back, the kids, things are being done differently, but the kids don't even care. For them, it's just about getting back and having fun. Erin gave an example of her son who's back playing baseball, and they've created their own kind of COVID-6 rule. And so, they're self-aware of anybody within 6 feet of them. So they're playing the game. And if anybody kind of comes with, beyond that 6 feet, They're like, they yell 6, and then they all kind of, take the gander around, make sure everybody's in the right space, and then they kind of back up and they keep playing, and they're just so happy to be there.
Yeah.
So, Aaron gives some great tips on the kinds of things you should ask your sport provider, when you're coming back to sport, to make sure that you are entering a safe space. But there's a lot of great precautions that are happening, and it's so worth it to get back for our physical and mental sanity for kids and full families. So I fully support Ron in supporting these sport organizations, because we want our sports that we love to still be there, but also because we need it. We need the social, and we need the physical.
Yep, definitely. I totally agree. And we're just going to throw it to a quick break. We'll be right back, guys. And we're going to continue this conversation right where we're going to leave off. So we'll talk to you soon. Hey, everyone. Of course, our podcast would not be possible without our amazing sponsors. So today, I want to send some love over to our pals at Market Brewing. They've got great beer, and they've always got something new coming out. Every week, they've got new beer flavors. They've got awesome local events, and it's a great place for community to come together and have some fun. It's like an adult's playground, but with lots of safety set up for COVID protocols. Tuesday night, they have trivia night. Thursdays, they've got bingo. Comedy nights, the Snapped Local Music Series on the weekend, and live music on Saturday afternoons too. And there's always food trucks and great chefs showing up when it's busy nights. So make sure you stop by there, check out Market Brewing. You can go by their website to buy some beer and learn more. Thanks. All right, and we're back. Nice little break there. I wanted to throw it back to Tina. Tina was on a roll there, so we want to keep that going. Tina, I wanted to ask you about, we all know it's very important for people to be in sports, specifically young people. But one of the biggest drop-offs that we're seeing in sports today is young girls and women dropping out of sports. There's high numbers in that. And I was curious to see what maybe some background information on why that's happening and how we can change it.
The Canadian Women in Sport just released a rally report. And people have been researching this issue of kind of gender equity in sport and women and girls participation for years. And the numbers don't seem to be getting better. In fact, they're getting worse. Girls are dropping out at 3 times the rate of boys in their teen years.
Wow.
And, some people are saying, well, what is that? Is it, just because they think it's boring now, or that they're, whatever, they're on their electronics. And we were in a really great conversation with Sheila Croxton. She's a 3-time Olympic coach. The town of Aurora hosted a great webinar with her. She's a phenomenal woman and just so inspiring. And, she's coached all kinds of Olympic teams and athletes. And her perspective is that girls need to know that what they do matters. They need to have the role models. And, as society is telling them that they're not good enough, sport can be a real way to ground them and keep them connected and help them feel that they belong. So, there's a tremendous need to keep everybody in sport, boys, girls, the whole world. But
of course, yeah.
When girls are dropping out at such a huge rate, and we know that sport can impact, like it transcends sport, right? It's not just about playing the game. It's about building confidence,
teamwork, all those things.
Exactly. Teamwork, confidence, leadership, community, all those things that help your mental health, your physical health, and can transcend into the boardroom. A lot of, if you look at any C-level women that are in the boardroom, the one common trait that most of them have, in fact, I think it's like 96% of them, is that they've all played some organized sport. So it's important. It's important for life. I know, Ron, you've got some things to contribute on that realm as well, because you're working directly with a lot of the sport organizations to kind of work on programs for that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the directions that we took with the Activate Aurora program that was around, and it was a provincially funded program, was to try to work with the schools. And we participated with 9 elementary schools here, providing teachers with knowledge and skill in developing physical literacy, particularly in young girls, because what we knew was that for some reason, young girls didn't value the development of fundamental movement skills and even sport skills. And so giving them that competence developed confidence in them. And so and we still have a program that's ready to fire up again in the elementary schools with Girls Inc. To help build social, emotional, as well as this physical skill in an after-school program. And we expect that that's going to move out from just one school when we get back to that type of thing into all of the schools in the community, because you're absolutely right, Tina. The number one thing is we need to have mentors and people, females that the girls look up to. But they also need to have the competence and the confidence to continue on, not only in schools, but also in community-based programs such as sport programs or even things that are happening at the municipal level. It's a tragedy what's happened with girls dropping out of sport, because we know the value of it in their total development, social as well as emotional. So good on see what she can do, because you're really focusing on the advocacy for girls and women.
Yeah, and it's interesting, it's great that you're doing work within the schools and, helping, bring coaches and mentors and role models along as well, because, one of the things we're hearing is that boys and girls stay in sport for different reasons, right? So girls start, they need the relationships and the community first. And then as they build skill and confidence, then they, that makes them want to stay. They want to stay because of the community primarily, whereas, and they'll excel because they're in a community and they have the skills to do it. Whereas boys come in, play the sport, build the skills, excel, and then become part of the community. So, we have to recognize that it is different. It's very relational first. As opposed to an outcome of it, and they'll excel because of that. So grouping that relational and that community with those skills is just an ideal situation. It's a win-win all around, right?
Yeah, it certainly is. Yeah, we need to do a little more advocacy work with both women leading girls, because it's we know that girls actually learn differently than boys do, and so the training that is coming into this town, we've run a Women Leading Girls program for 15 years. And I think we need to emphasize that. And the other things that are going on as a result of COVID is that I'm worried that there's going to be marginalization of people who don't have enough money to be able to put their kids into programs. Newcomers are another thing. I read an article the other day that something like 31% of the people in Aurora have come in the last 5 years, and the majority of them have English as a second language. So there's other groups besides women and girls that are being marginalized because of this. So you may see some activity going on in the newcomers area, as well as working with children that don't have the financial means to participate. We already have the All Kids Can Play program, and we also have Jumpstart, but we need to augment these programs and outreach to people a little bit more.
Yeah, the more people in our community we can get involved in sport, the better. That's for sure. Everyone wins.
Yeah.
I wanted to open the floor for you guys to kind of plug what you guys have coming up. So I'll throw it to you first, Jesse. I know you're doing a lot of amazing work in our community. You've done some concerts at Town Park. And like we said earlier in this episode, we were talking about gigging live. So tell us what you've got coming up.
Surprisingly, there's so much going on. It's a great thing.
It's very good.
Each week at the Snap location, we've been doing comedy and live music, and that moved over to Market Brewing. So there's some art stuff going on in that realm. And then we're also doing the larger shows at the end of each month, gigging live. So this one we mentioned sponsoring Terry Fox.
Yeah.
And it's going to be great. We're going to have about 6 bands. And yeah, it's going to be a great time. So there's been that. I know the Aurora Town Park has been throwing on. They did Aurora Palooza, and then they did the concert series in the park, which I played with Glenn Murray. So yeah, a lot of that stuff's been great. And I know one of the other things I'm involved with is teaching as well. So through this time, it's been really great to be able to keep my students in touch with something, to have that outlet of arts and music. So yeah, there's lots of things changing and lots of things growing, even though times might be a little bit wary. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Gigging Live's coming up. So where people can find tickets at newmarket.snap.com, and it's by donation, correct?
Yeah.
So yeah, this Gig and Live 3 is going to be raising funds towards the Terry Fox Foundation, as well as local musicians, right?
Yep. That's
awesome. Tina, I wanted to throw it to you. I know See What She Can Do is always cooking up new stuff. You guys are very busy all the time. So what's on the horizon for you guys?
Well, we've, like I just mentioned earlier, we've just launched our podcast. So we're full mode into recording future episodes. We've got some really cool stuff coming up. And really the platform is to demonstrate how awesome, active women are in our community and the roles that they play and all the supporters in the community that help her be who she is. So we're super stoked about that. We're also partnering with Sport Aurora to collaborate on content sharing to further showcase women in our community and the girls that are in it, so that we put more role models out there and help people see it so they can be it. We've got lots more content that we're creating that's going to get out in the marketplace. We're helping a lot of sport organizations right now kind of muddle through COVID and get through that stronger. As Ron had mentioned earlier,
build
sponsorship and fundraising. Yeah, those things are really important right now because there's not the same amount of fans in the stands as there used to be before.
Yeah,
things are
definitely
very different. So we're helping them kind of muddle through how to bring value to their sponsors and support them, get supported through fundraising so that these sport organizations can be around in the coming months.
Awesome. That's great. You guys are up to some awesome stuff. So it's really amazing to have you here in our community. That's for sure. And Ron, I wanted to throw it to you last to talk about what Sport Aurora has on the horizon and what you're excited about.
Well, we've been working with all of our sports on return to play, and Tina brought it up earlier about sports being ready. Sports have always been ready and been waiting for the go to get off the mark because they have talked and listened to parents and they know what parents' concerns are. So any parents there watching and listening today should be comfortable that when the sport organization offers a program, it's safe and it's meeting all of the public health guidelines. So they're ready to go. All we need are people to show up and start and participate. And as Tina suggested before, the games are different. There's not as much strategy and as much of the competition types of things. And I think a lot of sports are going back to the basics and looking at how do we make sport fun again? How do we play? How do we get out there and teach basic skills instead of worrying about beating the other team? And I think, that might be one of the good unintended consequences of what's going on. We're going back to some basics.
Back to the basics.
We're having kids enjoy just being out there and being better movers. So I really like the way that the pivoting has occurred with many of the sport organizations. So safety is a big issue, and that's what we're doing to help. But we're also now working on trying to develop some sponsorship activities. We put a grant application into the Ontario Trillium Foundation in order to see if we could help all of our sports pivot by developing a volunteer development program so that we can find new volunteers, we can train new volunteers, because at the end of the day, volunteers are at the heart of every one of these sport organizations, and without volunteers, they just can't work. No. So we're working in that direction, and we're building a marketplace where we can connect business and sport a little bit better because of the need for sponsorship. And frankly, I think sport organizations have an obligation to their sponsors to start sending their thousands and thousands of families to local businesses. So we're working with a company called True Real to try to help build that relationship between sport and business. So in Sport Aurora, it's not all just about sport, it's about managing sport. And we also have a new website called Sport Physical Activity and Recreation that's meant for the public so that they can join in the conversation. So please go to Facebook and take a look at that and like it. And if you want to join in the conversation, you're certainly welcome to do that.
Awesome. Well, guys, it's been great having you guys on. It's definitely beneficial for everybody if we build up the local arts and sports communities, I think everyone wins, the kids, the adults, the local businesses. Right now, with everything that's going on, it's all about supporting local, right? And working together to make things happen. So I wanted to thank you guys for coming on. That was awesome today.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You're welcome.
Been great to be here. Can I ask Jesse a couple questions? Is that all right?
Sure, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Awesome. So Jesse, I'm interested in understanding in the music world, because we see lots of parallels between art and sport, and in many cases it crosses over with things like dance and figure skating and all those other things. So it's very performance based.
Yep.
What's been the impact on COVID, and how are you guys kind of pivoting to, as leaders and mentors, to kind of help kids still do what they love in that space?
Yeah, great question. So it's just been a lot of adjustments. Like everything else, we've had to move online with a lot of the engagement with our students, but thankfully it hasn't died down. Like I've actually gotten more students since this has all started, because people have wanted something to do with their time, because
more free time.
That's it. And they're feeling like they have a little more energy to get involved with something that they're going to put their mind to. So there's actually been some great benefits from that with my students, and they've had more time to practice. Each week they're coming back and really growing as an individual and as a musician. So there's lots of things we're putting in place for those kind of benefits.
You kind of got to.
That's awesome. Are you seeing adults too? Like, are you seeing more adults come on board, or is it mostly just kids?
Yeah, lots changed kind of since the world's opening back up, just with the free time. But I had a lot of adult students that were just wanting something to kind of pass the time with, right?
Yeah. Well, most people have that, I've wanted to play guitar for 20 years. I've never done it. I guess now's the best time, right?
Exactly.
That free time.
Yeah.
But it's good that you guys have transitioned to go online, because,
Are your classes on demand too, or is it all live, kind of live stream stuff?
It's all live stream. So I'm just doing Skype and Zoom calls with one-on-one with a lot of students. And I'm actually teaching through the store in Keswick, Connor's Music. They had me set up a pre-COVID with a lot of students. So I kind of took all that and shifted it online to make sure everybody has an outlet.
Yeah. Shout out to Connor's Music. They're great up there.
Yeah, they're great people.
That's awesome.
Tina, did you have anything else for Jesse?
Yeah. What was the coolest, most unusual place you visited in your travels in music?
Coolest?
Or the weirdest food that you ate while you were there? I'm going to ask you two questions. Weirdest place you went to, the coolest place you went to, and the weirdest food you've ever eaten there.
The new segment to close out the show. Tell us the weirdest food you've eaten.
The weirdest food. We had a flight that actually we went to Scotland and got to enjoy some haggis.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's probably one of the weirdest foods. But in terms of places, actually, when I was in Salzburg, we played this venue that was actually a hole cut into the side of a mountain. Okay. So it was like a tunnel dug into a mountain, and at the very back of this tunnel was the stage, and you'd kind of play back towards the entrance. So it had this really crazy acoustics, and you could almost kind of feel the density of this mountain around you. And that was probably one of the coolest venues I've played for sure.
That's very cool.
All right, guys, we're going to close out the show. Thank you so much for everybody for coming on. For the listeners, if you want to learn more about Sport Aurora, you can go to www.sportaurora.ca. You can learn more what they're doing there. For See What She Can Do, it's seewhatshecandoaltogether.com. And lastly, to learn what Jesse's got coming up, and if you want to connect with him, you can go to jessecarwatt.com. And that's going to do it for today's show. Thank you, everybody, again, for coming on. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And we can't wait to chat next time here in the Buzz 505 studio. Talk to you soon.